Moms. All right, refreshed moms. I don't know if I just said that twice on the recording, but I'm very excited. This is probably going to be one of my favorite topics to talk about this year because with one of my favorite people that to talk about. We're probably going to laugh. We're probably going to laugh. It's
Yes.
something that we're probably going to laugh about. But some of this stuff is kind of heavy, so we'll see. But Faith makes me laugh. Because I get her and she gets me, and
Yeah.
it just ends up being funny. But I have on the recording with me this week Faith Joyner, who is a we actually our relationship is weird. We attended the same church, but not at the same time, and became social media friends through mutual members of that church after I had left the church. And the church was in Florida, so we weren't even living in the same city anymore. Both of us ended up moving to the same city, and it wasn't until like last year that I'm like, "Are you in Atlanta? Are you local?" And we got together, and we actually put faces to the social media relationship. I am very, 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 very happy to have Faith Joyner, who is a professional therapist and counselor. Her specialty is in marriage counseling, and she has an organization or business, I should say, not organization, called Four Wives Only. And if you don't know her, you need to know her. She's amazing, and you're going to see why in just a few minutes. But I would like for you to help me welcome Faith Joyner. And Faith, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your story and how you started down this journey with Four Wives Only?
Absolutely. So thank you, first of all, Deanna, so much for inviting me. I appreciate it. It's mutual love between you and I. I love the fact that you're a part of my tribe, and I appreciate the work that you're doing with Refreshed Moms. Hello, everyone. My name is Faith Joyner. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of Florida. I'm currently working towards my license in the state of Georgia. My husband and I are fairly new to Georgia. Next year to be 2 years. And I'm so sorry people are texting me. So
It's
I'm
okay.
gonna have that go off. And so I've been married for this June, actually June 1st will be 14 years.
Woo!
Yes, Hunty. And actually, we're going to South Carolina. We've dedicated our marriage to doing 50 states in 50 years. We just
Oh,
tried to do something
awesome.
fun and creative. Jamal and I, we love to travel, and so that's what we dedicated our lives, our marriage to do. So again, I've been married for 14 years. I've been in practice, professional practice for counseling for over 9.5 years. I do some marriage coaching with my husband, and that's about it as far as counseling and coaching. As far
Okay.
as Four Wives Only, I love my group. That was birthed out of me speaking at events, and wives will come up to me, and I mean it could be a church event, a book signing, or whatnot, whatever I was doing. Wives will come up to me and they will ask me questions, or they will comment on something. They will say something like, thank you so much for saying that. My husband really needs to hear something like that. It's really hard for me to talk about this. And so once I saw that about 3 times, I was like, okay, we need a safe space to talk about what it means to be a woman and what it means to be married. And marriage is not all the roses and happily ever
No.
after and all that other stuff. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of valleys and peaks that comes along with marriage. And so we just needed a safe space to talk about that. And so that's how Four Wives Only was birthed. And I love my group, and we're doing some wonderful things together.
Yes, you are. And you guys are going to have an opportunity to find Faith. I'll make sure that all of her information is in the show notes for this. But so don't worry. Don't, stop the recording unless you want to and go find her on the gram. But I will make sure you can find her.
Yeah.
So, first of all, when are you going to be in South Carolina?
So May
Oh, it's in May. Okay,
30th,
never mind.
May
I was
30th
trying to
through
see if we were
June
going to be in
3rd.
there at the same time because I'll be
Okay.
there for a week. coming soon. So,
Okay.
but it's in June, so never mind. All
Okay.
right.
Okay.
So, if you are in the membership community, just this, oh gosh, last month, it'll, by the time you see this recording, it'll be last month, but the last self care topic that I taught on was knowing your self care needs. And I want to recap just a few of those things because I'm going to take you guys through these steps over the next few self care focus workshops. These are what we're going to cover. So, let me share my screen real quick and cover these, recap these steps. All right. So we talked about in video 2, it should be video 2 on the membership group page, how to know your self-care needs. And this is the list that I gave you to get started with. And spending time getting to know yourself better was one of them. Taking some time to get by yourself, spend some time understanding who you are. And I told you in that workshop, if you have spent a significant amount of time giving, many times you lose touch with who you are and what you need in order to take care of yourself. And that is exactly what my story was. But spend time getting to know yourself and identify what you desire and what you need. I gave a list of self-discovery questions that you can use to go down and just journal some of the answers. There's like 50 questions in that self-discovery list. You don't have to go down all 50, but answer enough of them to get in touch or more in touch with what you need. Okay. And then once you do that, you're going to identify the tools that will help you get what you desire and what you need. And we will touch on that a little bit more deeply later on in the group. Communicate with those that need to know what you need. And that's what we're going to talk about today, and include them in your considerations. Then you're going to make a plan, and then you're going to execute that plan. You're going to assess if that plan is working for you, and then you'll adjust if it's not or as needed. And this is a cyclical cycle. You can do this once a year. This is not something you do one time and you're done with it, because we evolve as human beings. We evolve as women. Our desires and our needs and our life seasons change. And so this is an exercise that you can do as many times as you need to in order to make sure your self-care is doing what it needs to do. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we are going to go right into the topic today, which is communicating your self-care needs to your spouse. And I could not have anyone better on this recording besides Faith to talk about this. So Faith, I'm going to sit back. I'm going to ask some questions and allow you to answer them. I want you guys to also know I've shared some of the things you shared with me with Faith just in preparation for this, just so she can see what some of the community needs were or what you guys expressed were needs. So we're going to try to weave some of that in our conversation, but we're going to start with this. Why, Faith, is communicating our needs with our husbands important in the first place? Why is that important?
Okay, so before I start, I know most of you may not know me, but one of the things that Deanna knows about me is I can be kind of raw. So please know that I'm saying everything that I'm saying out of love. I'm also saying it out of my professional experience, some out of my personal experience. And so I don't want anyone to think that the ideas or the tips that I'm going to give are unachievable, because they're not. I see it happen all the time in all walks of life. In all walks of life. So before we get into this, I just want to say I love you. And so let's get into it. So you asked,
because I know her.
So you asked why communicating our needs to our spouse is important. So one thing that I think we in marriage, not just the wives but the husband too, we take for granted and we get confused, is that we think marriage and being in a partnership is like magic. You know, this is what we think marriage is like. You know, we think, if we say something one time, then it's gonna magically appear, and that's not true. So I need you to understand that your husband cannot read your mind. He cannot understand your heart unless you communicate it to him. Sometimes, depending on what your needs are and when you need it and what's required and whatnot, you may have to reiterate that sometimes.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's important for us to reiterate, honey, I'm overwhelmed. Can you help me with the dishes? Can you help me with the laundry? Sometimes our husbands were not um, taught how to support a wife, and they weren't taught how to live and be a unit and be partners with another woman. So that's where you come in and using your superpowers, as I call them, to naturally and consistently draw what you need out of your husband. So you have to teach your husband how to support you. You have to teach your husband how to love you. And when I say that, know that I'm saying how to love you, not how to love them other chicks he used to be with. Don't nobody
Right.
care about what he used to do with them. Don't
Right.
nobody care about what he did with his mama and his daddy and his sisters, them. Don't nobody care about that. What I need you to understand is what I need from you as your wife.
Yes.
And so getting to the point where you can gently express that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, how to do that, express your needs, because sometimes he just doesn't know. And also, don't take things so personal, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we're just like, well, he should know by now. It's been
Right.
5 years, it's been 10 years, it's been 15 years. Yeah, but just like you forget things, just like you miss
Hmm.
the mark, just like you mess up, your husband does too.
Yes.
So give him time and permission to grow, just as you need time and permission to grow as well.
Yeah. And we need to also understand that we change up on them. We change up on our husbands. And so they're going off of information, the last bits and pieces of information we shared. I remember for my birthday, this my last birthday, or this my birthday this past year. My children are older now. My children have opportunities to make their own money. They have bank accounts. There was a time when them making their own cards was fine on birthdays, right?
Hmm.
And this past birthday, it was like I got up in the morning. My husband happened to be home that day because my birthday is on a holiday. And everything was like business as usual. We were going to go out to dinner later that day, but, it was like, happy birthday, Mom. Hey, can you make me some pancakes? Everything went business as usual. And there was like nothing like waiting outside my door. There was like, nothing, I go all out for everybody's birthday. I
Okay.
decorate doors and have a gift waiting outside, and I'm like, there ain't nothing. Everybody act like this is a normal day. And I had to tell my husband, our kids have money. They need to learn how to go and buy their mother a gift. And it doesn't, and I told him, I said, I'm not expensive. I'm not looking for stuff. What is my favorite cupcake? What's my favorite candy? And I had to direct him on
Hmm.
how to direct our children to serve me on my birthday. And guess what? Mother's Day just passed after, this recording is the day after Mother's Day, and he nailed it for Mother's Day
Most
because I
certainly
had to,
will.
yeah, because
Absolutely.
he knew based off, but the years prior, the kids, I didn't have that same expectation for my children because they were younger. And
Hmm.
something shifted in me. I know what they got in their accounts. I know what they're saving, what kind of little stuff they like spending their money on that means nothing. Video games they're saving up for and toys that they want. They can take a little bit of that money and invest it back into their mother. It's a healthy thing to teach them. But he had no clue, and it was not his intention to not have my children honor me. He just didn't know that I switched up on him. I changed the game. I said no, they need to learn some new things, and they need to their expressions of love to me mean different at 12 and 10 than they meant at 6 and 4. It just changed, and so I had to let him know that. And Mother's Day was awesome. Awesome. It was awesome from everybody. Nobody was sad because they didn't buy mommy a gift.
Right.
Because that's
Right.
what happened on my birthday. Everybody was feeling guilty. But no, they
Right.
were excited to bring in the gifts that they picked out with their own money and that blah blah blah. So anyway, All right.
And sometimes, and to that, sometimes wives they want to leave their marriage because they believe that they've outgrown their husband.
Mm.
And so to a certain extent, I understand what they're saying. You know, let's just say you got married at 19, and there were a lot of things that you accepted at 19 that you're not going to accept at
Oh
35
yes.
and
Yes.
40. But you have not communicated that to him. So how does he know? And if you did communicate that to him, how did you communicate that to him?
Yes.
Were you gentle about it? Were you direct about it? Were you calm about it? You know, anytime a man feels like, or he believes that he's being controlled or manipulated or anything, he's not going to listen to anything you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so sometimes, yes, we've outgrown what we used to
Accept.
abide by or accept, right? And so your husband needs to be aware of the new you,
Right.
the new you.
Right. Right. And it's okay. It's
Yeah.
you know, it's okay that they don't know.
Yep.
It's completely reasonable to think that they're not aware, and that it's not their fault that they're not aware.
Yes.
You just gotta
Yes.
help them become aware. Okay. My next question is, what are some common challenges wives experience when it comes to communicating their needs to their husbands? And I know we touched on some of those in our pre-recording discussion, but can you talk to us about what some of those challenges are that we face as wives?
So we either swing from one extreme to the other. So for some of us, we're passive and we don't say anything because we want to keep the peace. We don't want to rock the boat or anything like that. Or some of us, we're aggressive and controlling, and to make sure that we get what we want, how we want it, when we want it, where we want it. And so whether you're the passive type, the aggressive type, or maybe you're the nice nasty type, you know, therapeutically we call that passive aggressive.
Passive aggressive.
Yes. But you know, in them streets we call it, you know, nice nasty. So whether you're in either of those categories, all of those categories are rooted in fear. Fear of not being heard, fear that change is never going to come, fear that he's going to leave me. You know, some people believe, you know, if I have a voice in my marriage, then, you know, my husband's going to leave me. He's not going to want to be with me. So these are some of the challenges that we experience. Fear of having to put more work into our marriage and believing that we're the only ones putting the work in. Not understanding that our husbands is putting just as much work into it, is just different.
Yeah.
My husband, Jamal, and I were recently talking about, you know, our marriage when we were in Germany, and that's where we met. And he said, babe, you know, you were reading the books and getting the videos and all this, that, and the other. And he was like, but what I was doing was to work on our marriage. He was like, you would say things, very cutting and hurting things to me, and I wouldn't say anything. And I went into prayer for you and prayer for myself, and just handle some things within myself and talk myself through some things. And that was my way of working towards having a healthy marriage. But because I didn't see that, because I was reading the books and watching the videos and stuff like that, I would accuse him of not working on our marriage.
I'm so guilty.
And so, I'm sorry?
I'm so guilty.
Yes,
That's
yes.
Me. Yep.
And so just understanding that our husbands have different ways of working on our marriage or working on themselves. So those are some of the challenges we experience. And so when it comes to fear, because like I said, being passive, being nice, nasty, being aggressive, you know, that's rooted in fear. I want you to be honest about that fear and deal with it. Like, where does it stem from? Where does it come from? How is that fear serving you? We only behave in manners that serve us. Like, we only make certain choices because they benefit us.
In some way, yep.
In some way. So how is that fear benefiting you? What are the benefits of remaining in that fear? And I want you to be honest and think about what will happen if that fear becomes a reality. What if he doesn't ever change?
Right.
Then what?
Exactly. Oh my
What
goodness.
if he, doesn't understand? And we'll talk about that, later on. Then what? What if
Yeah.
he does leave?
Yes. Yes. That I have talked to women in other cases, like with
Sure.
finances or whatever, and bring them to the worst case scenario. I'm saying,
Yep.
what's the worst thing that could happen if A, B, and C were to go down?
Hmm.
I lose my house or blah 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 or whatever. And I'm like, okay, let's address the fear around that worst case scenario, because even in the worst case scenario, there's a wisdom. There's a wisdom to
Yes.
get out.
Yes.
I want you to go ahead and embrace that really could happen,
Yep.
but you don't have to be scared of it. You can be ready and prepared for it. You can have wisdom to handle the worst case scenario. So anyway,
And even if
I'm
you
just
aren't
piggybacking.
afraid of it, you have the strength to push past the fear and do what you have to do anyway, even
Yes,
with the
in the
fear.
fear,
Even,
which is
you
the
know what I'm
courage.
saying? And
Courage
so,
is what we need, because
absolutely.
yeah, it's the courage to move forward,
Yes.
because we
Yes.
can definitely be shaking in our boots while we're doing it. But
Absolutely.
courage is the courage to pull up the big girl pants and handle our
So,
stuff.
absolutely. And so there were two other things that I wanted to address in here. So,
Hmm.
what are some common challenges wives experience? So, fear, you don't know how to communicate to your husband in a calm, confident manner because of fear and all the stuff that we just discussed. Number two is we become hopeless. We've lived a certain way for so
Hmm.
long
Yeah.
that our negative self talk and our fear prevents us from doing anything to move forward. So I definitely want to commend everybody that's in this group because you are taking the step to move forward in a healthy manner. But when you ask about some challenges, just some people just give up and they just stay stuck. And it's not because you can't get out of it, is you don't see any way out of it anymore. You're not pursuing any way to get out of it. No one's presented a way for you to get out of it, and so that's why I definitely commend the wives and the moms on here in your group. And so the third challenge that comes up is that we're so afraid of, again, there goes that word fear again, to try something new. We've been so stuck for so long, we just automatically think that ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
That's too easy, or that's too difficult, and we just stay in this rut because we're afraid to try something new because again we don't believe that it's going to work. So those are some of the challenges that wives hit up against when communicating their needs to their husband. um, and I want to encourage you that if what you're doing right now is not working, please do something new.
Yes.
It might
Yes.
blow your mind. It might blow your mind. Do something new.
I want to reframe that in the format of a mother.
Sure.
One of the things I think that keeps us from doing what we need to do is our fear of not being what our children need us to be. And
Sure.
and that paralyzes mothers from caring for themselves because of the guilt that they feel of
Hmm.
not being a, and I really wish we could sit down with moms from 40, 50 years ago, because this craziness that we're walking in, this Pinterest, these Pinterest lifestyles that it has caused us to feel like we can't be separated from our kids from a long period of time. And I'm not even talking about, weeks. I'm talking about a day. I'm talking about a half a day. And we, for some reason, carry around guilt of separating ourselves from the presence of our home and our children in order to care for ourselves. Because to us, my child, I have walked out of my house with a crying child,
Sure.
begging me to stay home because they don't want to
Sure.
stay home alone with their father, or I was
Sure.
gone the day before. Can you stay? And I'm like, I'm doing this for you. You
Exactly.
want me to leave. You want me to go in order for me to come back and be 100% ready for the stuff you're going to bring. this is beneficial to us. And the child has watched me pull out of the driveway staring at me. And I'm like, deuces, because I understand that this is for all of our benefit, letting mommy
Mm-hmm.
go. So I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to reframe that just a little bit, even though this is not
Sure.
about momming. We're talking
Sure.
about spousing. But
Sure.
because you brought that up, I wanted just to add that extra element of guilt that moms tend to carry because they feel like they are being less than a mom, the mom that they need to be, because they are taking time away from their child. And that's a
And
lie.
can
Go
and
ahead.
may I say this? Your children don't get to make adult decisions.
No.
They're 3. They're 8. They're 16.
Right.
They don't know jack about life, about
Right.
living. I know we sometimes say, oh, I have a very mature 14-year-old. They're still 14, right? Cannot let children make decisions for you.
Right. Right.
They're never going to understand until they become adults.
Yes. And parents of their own kids and
Exactly.
understand the demand
Exactly.
that their crazy tales put on us emotionally to be
Exactly.
good for them.
I have a
And it's
wife in my group who shared with us that she lived her, life losing herself in her marriage,
mm,
losing herself in her children. And now that, her children are adults now and they have their own children, she's witnessing her daughter do the same thing, and it's heartbreaking because she's like, this is what I've trained her to do. I've trained her not to take care of herself. I've trained her not to know what she likes to eat or what's her favorite cut. Like, I've trained her not to do that. So she's processing and overcoming some things as a mom with adult children, the type of example that she's given to her children. And we have to understand that we're not raising children, we're raising adults.
yes.
Your children, they're going to grow up to be mothers and fathers and wives and husbands. And what type of example do you want to give to them as far as how to take care of themselves? And we, unfortunately, we have to be taught those things.
Right.
We don't come out the womb knowing how to take care
Right.
of ourselves,
Right.
you know?
Right. It's what a gift to give to our children,
Yeah.
the ability to um, care for themselves well. It's a gift, and it's across the board. All the areas I talk about. Talking about our health and wellness, talking about sleeping, talking about
Yes.
relationships, talking about parenting. All of those, whatever. What a
Yes.
gift we can give them by modeling what it means to take
Yes.
care of themselves. So when it's time for your daughter, and I say daughter because women tend to need this emotional refilling differently than men, but when it's time for your daughter to step out of the house and go hang with some friends, you want her to be able to do that without guilt when she's a parent. You want her to be able to say, my mom showed me how to do this, and I'm going to do it, and it's going to be okay. All right. What's my next question for you? What are some best practices of communicating our needs well to our husband? Go.
This is I love this question so much. So you want to set your boundaries. And what do I mean by boundaries? I don't know if you talked to your group
Mm-mm.
yet about boundaries. So boundaries are limits and rules that we set for ourselves in relationships. So I
Okay.
want you to make sure you hear that. Boundaries is not limits and rules that you set for other people.
Right.
It's what you set for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're setting our boundaries, we're not, and we're communicating our boundaries to our husbands, we're not telling our husbands what they're not going to do.
Right.
We're telling our husbands what we're not going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Key point. So I had this client before, probably about 2 years ago, and she was overwhelmed. 2 kids, husband. She was a stay-at-home mom, and she needed some help around the house. And I was like, well, what would you like your husband to help you with? Well, if he can just pick up his clothes off the freaking floor and put them in the basket so I can freaking A so I can do the laundry. Like just little stuff like that. It matters, you know.
Uh-huh.
And so I said, okay, well, let's come up with some boundaries that you need to set for yourself. So we brainstormed some things and we came down to the point where one of her boundaries was, and I'll just call her Sarah. Her name was not Sarah, but I'll just call her Sarah. Sarah said, okay, I do not wash clothes that are on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
I only wash clothes that are in the laundry basket. So she went home, communicated this to her husband. Of course, he did not listen, right? Because she's trained him, she's taught him that it doesn't matter what she says anyway, she's going to do whatever he wants her to do. And so one morning he was frantic, was looking for a clean shirt to wear to work, and he's running around like, where's my clean shirts? Da, 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 da. And so she gets up and she calmly says, your clothes are on the floor because you didn't put them in the basket, so you don't have any clean shirts. He was livid. I'm going to be late. Look at what you've done. Da, 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 da. And she had to, again, communicate her boundary. Honey, well, I've already told you, I don't wash clothes that are on the floor. If you put your clothes in a basket, I will definitely wash those clothes for you.
Yep.
So he gets upset. He runs out of the house. He's late to work. That's another thing that's a whole nother subject. We have to let the natural consequences come to people who underfunction in relationships, but that's a whole different issue.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And so from that time on, that man never left his clothes on the floor because his wife set a boundary for herself. She didn't say, you need to put your clothes in a basket so I can wash them, or I'm not going to do, if you do this, then I'm going to do. There wasn't any of that. It was, this is what I'm going to do.
Right.
And she let the natural consequences come to him because of her boundaries. So communicate your boundaries, express what you're going to do, not what they're not going to do, but express what you're going to do. So that's number one.
That's a good one.
Number two, don't feel, so I'll say this, don't feel guilty. So I know that's extremely hard. Somewhere along the way, we've been taught to feel guilty and to take things personal and to take things and own things that does not belong to us. So just because you feel guilty about something, depending on what it is, doesn't necessarily mean that you are guilty. We call that a cognitive distortion. That's distorted. I'm setting a boundary for myself. I'm doing something that's healthy for myself, and someone's trying to make you feel guilty, or you're making yourself feel guilty. That's skewed thinking.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what we have to understand is that we cannot control what other people think about us, what other people say, and what other people do. We can only control our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. Mm-hmm. So to not feel guilty is going to take practice. And to practice this means setting boundaries and actually following through with them.
Yes.
You're never going to get past this and learn from it if you don't actually set your boundaries and follow through. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The follow through is where the change happens. I can think of a couple scenarios. And like you said, this not you're not coming across passive aggressive. You're not, walking around dictating what's going to happen. You just identified, which I'm telling you, ladies, take the time to go through those journaling questions. They're going to help you identify some of these boundaries for yourself. And once you realize, oh, I don't want to do this, or I don't care to do this, or this is impacting me this way, once you start realizing that, you can start creating boundaries and communicating them clearly. So one of the things I knew I wanted to develop is a period of Sabbath time. It's very hard for me to get 24 hours of Sabbath, but I can probably get 12. Okay. And so it was very And I know for some of y'all that's even huge. But I identified a day that I wanted to use as a Sabbath, and it was Saturday. And faith has been part of my Sabbath opportunities in the past. We just figure out something fun to do. But
Yep.
and I just sometimes I don't leave the house. Sometimes I just hang around the house, do what I want to do, watch Netflix and binge or whatever. Sometimes, you know, working on a work project is breathing life into me. You know, work with Refresh Moms. There are some things I'm like, oh, I can't wait to move this forward a little bit, and I may sit on my patio. That's patio strong, my carport, and just move a project forward a little bit. I may go shopping, whatever. It's my Saturday. And my husband, when we first started implementing these, my husband, I heard something crash. I'm just going to believe that my children are okay. But I guess they'll knock on the door if they're not. Um, my husband would text me throughout the week, hey, I want to set an appointment for the card, blah, 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 blah. Can you give me a time frame that works? I'm like, nothing on Saturday works. We can't do it on Saturday. Oh, okay. And he will figure out another time. Oh, hey, so and so wants to come by and do da 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 on Saturday. What? No, I'm not available. Even if I'm home, I'm not available. I'm not doing that. Oh, can we have a budget meeting? No, budget meetings bring me no life. They zero life. We're not going to have a budget meeting on Saturday. I will meet with you Sunday morning. But Saturdays, I don't want to have a budget meeting, honey. Nope, not available. And it took that happening a few times for him to know I'm not going to ask Deanna to do anything on Saturday. It would have to be something that we could not, there are exceptions. There's always exceptions. Don't legalize this. There's always exceptions. But he knows that it got to be something significant for me to even bring to her because she's already designated this. And he knows he can't plan. If you are planning something on my day, you better prepare for childcare or whatever else the kids need because I'm not available. I'm not available on Saturday, honey. I'm not. And he is, but we have communicated that and he has agreed to that. This is not something that he wasn't aware of. But it took me enforcing the boundary in order for that to become regular in my home. And it took some time, but that's where the magic happened. The magic happened when my boundary was challenged and I stood my ground with the boundary. So anyway, I'm just amening that point.
I love it. I love it. And that's what I was saying earlier. Sometimes you have to reiterate it, and it doesn't mean that your husband is bad or he's not
Right.
listening or he doesn't
Right.
understand. Just he's human.
Right.
He's human.
Right.
So the last thing that we can do, let me go back up to the questions. What are some best practices for communicating our needs? So the first thing, like I said, set your boundaries. Second thing is stop feeling guilty. Stop taking on other people's feelings and their mess and their junk, and that don't have nothing to do with you. So that's the second thing. The third thing is I want you to think about your coping skills. How are you coping? Sometimes the way that we've coped in the past may have worked before, but it's not working anymore. So, and this is going to sound so strange what I'm about to say, but it's real talk. Okay. So I'll just say for me, I'll speak about myself. So I'm a survivor of abuse, experienced several forms of abuse, and to cope with the abuse, I would isolate myself when I was a teenager and as an early adult. I would isolate myself. I had friends, but not too many. You know what I'm saying? And not saying you have to have a whole bunch of friends or anything like that, but it was not healthy the way I would isolate myself. I would overeat. And at that time, especially when I was growing up in that home, in order to survive, that was the best thing that I can do for myself, was to isolate myself, because I protected myself, right? I thought of it that I'm protecting myself from the world, from other people to abuse me, and so forth and so forth. And that was beneficial then. As I grew up and learned that the world can be a safe space, a safe place, that everybody's not out to get me, isolating myself doesn't work out for me anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially I'm on this trying to get back to my healthy self again. And even I've recently even dealt with some things where I had to deal with, where's this overeating coming from? Maybe back then it was beneficial. Maybe back then it protected me. Maybe back then it served a purpose, but now it's not serving a purpose. It's just pissing me off.
I get it.
So you have to look at your coping skills and decide what is serving me and what is not serving me, and be honest with yourself about that, and even communicate that to your husband. And I've had to communicate that to my husband. Baby, you cannot keep these type of cookies in this house because I will eat them.
Yes.
And I'm so serious. Like, so if he wants certain cookies, he hides them, or or he gets them on his own time, or he'll put it up or whatever. Because I will eat those cookies because I need help when it comes to self-control and my eating habits.
Right.
And I'm just being transparent about that. That's just an area that I'm growing in right now. So
those are same for me.
Yeah. So those are just some areas some best practices that we can grow in communicating our needs to our husbands.
Okay. Now this is something that this next question, because this is really real in lives of many wives. I want you to talk a little bit on what do you do when your husband is either not available to assist you with your self-care strategy. And this could be, deployed. This could be someone that has a health challenge. It could be a husband that just doesn't see the importance of what you need. What do you do if your husband does not understand or is not available to support what you're communicating you need?
That is a loaded question, and I'll tell you why it's loaded. For some people, it is, a military thing. They're deployed or they're contractor for a business that is required for them to go out of town a lot and so forth and so forth.
So let's do this. Can we split this up? Let's split this up because I think you're right. These are two different scenarios. Let's deal with the scenario of I am basically a single mom. My husband is not available to help. Get some strategy or some thoughts around strategy to still communicating with your husband what you need, because I still believe that's necessary. And then the part B would be, okay, what if you are communicating with your husband and he's not on board with supporting you on what you're saying you need? So let's start with the first one. And we can also include husbands that are not physically capable in this first answer as well.
Right. So let me start with what I believe is the easier part of this question, and that husbands that are not physically able. My husband has been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis for several years now. He fought in Iraq, and he is permanently disabled. And so one of the things that I've had to learn and grow in is, for one, asking for help. I am my husband's primary caretaker, and so I need help. And so I've learned to ask my friends, because we don't have family that can help us. So I've learned to ask my friends, for support. Especially emotional support for Jamal and I. Actually, we just got a bad report about Jamal probably about a week ago. And what I did was I text our covenant, what we are really close best friends, our covenant friends. There are three couples, and I text the husbands in that in a group text, and I said, hey, this is the report that Jamal received. He can really use some encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
It's little stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's little stuff like asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
Man, everybody came through for my husband. They texted him, they called him. It wasn't all on the same day or anything like that. It was just sometimes throughout the week, and it just lifted Jamal's spirit. It lifted my spirit because that was something I didn't have to do. Although I am doing it on a daily basis, but it was just something else I didn't have to do.
Right.
So asking for help, and that may mean finding a support system. Who's your support system? Who are the people that you can depend on? And then also taking some time for yourself, which is very hard. And I get it. I have a very hard time leaving my husband with anyone. And so we do have those covenant friends that I feel comfortable with. But I'm going to take a day trip with some of my friends out of town, and my husband's going to be with one of his friends, and I'm going to go by myself. Mm-hmm. Again, that's communicating those boundaries. I need that. Right? And so when you have a husband who isn't healthy, just learning how to ask for support, even from the state, even from the government.
Yes.
There are several programs in our community that you can be a part of to help you. And so you just have to dig a little bit, or even find a support group of other caretakers, and discover the community centers that are able to help you. So that was the easier part, right? Okay. We gotta ask. We gotta ask for help. And you have to be honest with your husband. Jamal and I have really tough conversations. I'm not brash about it. I'm not rude. I come as gently as I can. But I'm honest about, what MS and how MS has affected me, because it has. Mm-hmm. And we got to be able to say that, and we got to be able to grieve about that. Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, find a support group where you can even hash out a little bit more, because sometimes, depending on the physical state that your husband is in, he may not be able to handle that. And so find a support group, or even a professional counselor who can help you grieve, because you're losing something. Yes. I lost the health of my husband. We met each other in the military. Jamal was all big and buff and strong and everything, and fighting in the war and stuff. And then all of a sudden he's in a power chair. That's hard. Yeah. That's extremely difficult. So that was the easier part.
Before we move on to the harder part, I want to talk a little bit about the support, developing a support in a community around, what you need. There was a few comments that I read in our membership group that women were talking about the desire for deeper friendships, because I completely relate to that need. When me and my husband relocated to Atlanta, it'll be 2 years in July. This is 2018. I don't know when people are watching this, but in July 2018, it'll be 2 years. And I grieved the relationships that I left because I had relationships when my children were, crawling to the time that we relocated, that, my children were now being separated from these friendships. I was being separated from these friendships, and it was very, very hard to deal with. And at times it's still very challenging. And it has taken 2 years just to identify a handful of mothers that now I could drop my kids off at their house, and they can drop their kids off at mine. I went to the mountains a couple, or I guess it was in April, and took one of these children with me. It has taken 2 years just to get to the point of trust, for the trust that I needed to develop, and the trust that these other women needed to develop in order to go deeper in relationship. And I want, for the women that are desiring this, and let's say you have identified a few women that could possibly be this for you, you will never move faster than the process that it takes to develop genuine relationship. There's something to be said about relational equity, and you've got to give yourself the opportunity to develop that. And there's no replacement besides time and time spent in learning about that person and developing the things that you need to trust. I mean, we're talking about, for me, I'm talking about my kids. I'm not just going to drop
Yeah.
my kids off at someone's house, and neither should they. And I live in the hood, man. I don't live in a place where you see kids running and frolicking. No, I
Right.
live in a place where we might call 911 at every given moment. And for
Right.
people to come to where I dwell and to trust that their children will be safe with me is a huge deal. So my point is, and I know you probably ain't dealing with that same circumstance, but living in the hood,
Mhm.
which I embrace. It's just the season of life that I'm in. But um, you got to give yourself time to let those genuine, deep relationships build, and do your best to not pity yourself. For it's real easy to go into a group of women and you can see the previous relationships that have been built over years, and you sit back and you're feeling like, man, they're just not talking to me, they're just not paying any attention to me, I don't feel like I'm a part of this group. No, what has happened is these women have known each other since their children were in the womb, and here you come. You've got to respect that the time that they spent developing that friendship is what you see, but that doesn't mean they're not open. And you've just got to allow that relationship to develop in its own time. And I promise you, if you do the work of being a friend, of putting yourself in scenarios where you guys have opportunity to develop and grow, and
Mhm.
not try to move past the natural steps of relational equity, you will eventually develop community. So I'm just saying that when we're talking about the comments that we had for deeper friendships, and in this particular scenario, I definitely feel like if you can insert yourself in like-minded communities when you're dealing with spousal caretaking, or parent caretaking for a parent, or anything that is causing significant stress,
Right.
significant, consistent, ongoing pressure,
Right.
to insert yourself into, this could even be, and this is a side note, but when you're dealing with children with, a significant special need, you want to put yourself in like-minded communities in order to be around people that can relate to you, and you can definitely develop relationship around a common struggle. That's what this group is for. This
Yes.
group is for homeschooling mompreneurs that are exhausted. That's what this group is for. And we are
Yep.
coming together relating on that, because this is very unique to be homeschooling and running a business and having your kids around you all the time. That's a very unique circumstance. And we are creating community around a pain, around a
Yeah.
struggle.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are my things for that. So let's go ahead and go to the more difficult, unless you have
Sure.
something else you want to share with that, but the more
No, I
difficult
think I
question.
think we've said enough about that, but
Okay.
okay, so there's two sides to the more
I
difficult
and I
question.
already know one of your sides. You're gonna make me laugh when you talk about it, but go ahead.
There's two. I just so on one side, okay, if your husband's in the military, if your husband is a contractor for a business that is mandatory for them to go out of town and everything like that. Again, where's your support system, including your husband? Because just because he got a job that makes him leave out of town, don't mean he stopped being your husband, and don't mean he stopped being those kids' father.
Exactly.
So open and honest communication about what you need when he comes back into town. Oh, well, he's been working, and what you been doing?
Oh my gosh.
What you
I
been
can't.
doing?
I can't. I can't.
I just don't wanna.
I can't.
I don't want to overwhelm him. I want to give him some time. And what you been doing? Something's wrong with that.
Yes.
When everybody's needs supersedes yours, he been dealing with adults all this time and having adult conversations and stuff, and you've been home disciplining children and hearing, I don't want to, and but why?
And educating them. Home
right.
Educating them. This is a chosen career, women.
Exactly.
Let me reframe this. This is your career, dang it. You have chosen to be a homeschool mom, which means you have, in some ways, it's not a sacrifice, because Lord, please don't ever put me back in corporate. Ever. It's not a sacrifice to not be corporate America, going to work every day. I praise God for my husband for doing that, because Lord knows Deanna Mason was not made for that world. But we sacrifice possibly, making that level of income for a season in order to home educate our children, which in my opinion has no price value, has no income value. You can't match that. That's priceless. So you have chosen a career just because you don't have a W-2 form to prove that, and it's not necessarily recognized by the federal government that is a career. You are working, if not harder, just as hard as your spouse. Anyway, and you're probably working longer hours.
Yeah,
I know I am.
So, just because he's deployed or whatnot doesn't mean he stops being dad, and doesn't mean he stops being husband. So you need to communicate to him, even while he's away, this is what I'll need from you when you come back. So he can be mentally prepared for this stuff as he comes in and jumps back into his role of husband and father.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to be like, peace. He walk in the door, you be like, I'm out. No.
Yeah, don't do the man like that. Don't do the man like that.
Take your kids.
Men need some leadway. They need some, they need to know ahead of time. I mean, we need to know ahead of time too, but they need to process a little bit more than we do sometimes, not all the time. And so again, while they're away though, where's your support system? I love that you're doing this group. Please hang on to this group. This is your support system. This is where you're going to get your emotional support from. This is where you can build lasting connections. This is where you can build friendships. This is where you can, hey, I need to go, take care of myself. I need to go just have a day. You don't even have to do a mani-pedi and stuff. I just need a doggone day. Yeah. And you have this group where you can reach out to other people and see if that's what they can do for you. And you know what I'm saying? So you need support. We gotta have support. We have to have support. So get a support system, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Yeah. All right. So let's just say husband isn't available, which I don't know what that means, first of all. And I don't know.
He has not made himself available.
Right. Which is what I'm getting to. So is he neglecting being at home because it's hard? Is he neglecting being at home because it's overwhelming for him?
Let's say he is home. Let's just say he's home, but not recognizing let's say you came to him and expressed your need and he minimized it. He didn't give it value, couldn't understand. Woman, you are home all day. I go out to work. I'm not doing A, B, and C. Or, what if there is no understanding on the husband's end? Or let's say he is not that nasty. Let's just say he just don't get it. He just doesn't understand.
Right. So I'm gonna get to the he just doesn't understand.
Okay.
I'm sorry. addressing some people's husbands who are just mean and they're jerks. Like,
Okay.
we can't take for granted, especially in a population like this, like everybody has this great husband, because a lot of people don't, and I see it all the time. So that's the only reason why I want to address
Go ahead.
this.
Go for it.
Because I know some people are like, well, what about me? Well, that's not my situation. My husband's a jerk. So um is he neglecting you because of issues that are going on between you two? Is he neglecting you because of issues going on with your child? Is he neglecting you because it's overwhelming, and he doesn't think that he can handle it? I hear stories all the time. I just hear stories all the time where you think your husband has to work a lot, but he really doesn't. That's just what he chooses to do. So again, going back to the setting your boundaries, and then we're going to get into the if he doesn't understand or doesn't even want to listen to you about that, right? So again, setting your boundaries, you letting him know what you're going to tolerate, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, with or without his support. Because that's what it all boils down to. I need you to remember that you are an adult. You got to get out of this helplessness mindset.
That's not what I thought you were going to say.
What you thought I was going to say?
That you a grown butt woman.
Listen, that was in my next answer. That was in my next answer. It's coming. It's coming. And Deanna knows this because I say this a lot, even on social media. You're a grown behind woman, first of all. But you're an adult. You got to get out of this state of I'm helpless and I can't do anything for myself and I can't say anything and I can't do anything. Now, this is on the extreme part. So I know someone who husband travels a lot, and but they've had some trust issues to deal with. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. They have some trust issues, and she's had to let him know it's traveling a lot for your job or me. What is it going to be? So when she set a boundary, now all of a sudden he was able to, okay, I don't gotta travel 7 days out of the month. I only do 2. You know what I'm saying? Like,
all of a sudden signing up for league play in the evenings after work
exactly
becomes not as important, or hanging out. I know of a spouse of a married couple. They have young children and they both work full time, but for some reason the husband can figure out how to play league softball, league basketball, go hang out with his friends on game nights. He can figure out how to have a nightlife while his wife comes home to pick up the kids from daycare and make dinner and bathe them. And for some way he has figured out how to fill up time,
right?
Because the wife obviously has taught him that it's okay for you to have things to do in the evening during the week, because I'm going to be home with the girls. I'm done.
There are no natural consequences for husbands, and you wonder why they continue. Now, I'm not talking about if you're in an abusive relationship, if your husband's out there having affairs on you, or if he's dealing with an addiction. That don't have anything to do with you. That's their mess. That's their stuff. You are not the fault for that. But in other cases, your husband only treats you the way you allow him to treat you. So, again, set those boundaries and don't be afraid. He's not going to leave you. Men love women who have standards, who have boundaries. So get out of that fear base. Okay, that fear based mind about it not working out or him leaving you and all this other stuff. So you were asking, what should we do if we have a husband who just doesn't support us and so forth and so forth. Well, here's my statement again. First of all, I need you to understand you're a grown behind woman. He don't have to understand anything. Understanding is not a prerequisite to action or to follow through. There's a lot of things that we don't understand in marriage that we have to do in marriage and we don't understand. Is it nice to understand it? Absolutely.
Wonderful. It's wonderful when they get it.
But it's not a requirement.
It's not necessary.
So stop getting stuck in, I just need him to understand. You don't need him to understand the doggone thing. What you need for him to do is respect your boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
We got to get off that. I just want him to understand. I just got to sit and talk and da da da. No, he may not ever understand, baby. Ever. And that don't have nothing to do with you. When we're in a marriage, when how do I say this? We're not always going to understand each other's reasoning. That's just the nature of marriage. But our love for each other and our belief that we're on the same team, that we're partners in this together, to move us to compassion to fulfill each other's desires.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So stop waiting on him to understand. Okay. Secondly, okay, this is gonna come off, but remember I said in the beginning, I love y'all. Secondly, I want you to be honest with yourself and deal with the fact that you chose and married a man who does not support you. Out of that honesty will birth solutions to your problem, because now you know what type of man you're dealing with, whether he's doing it on purpose or not. Because like was said earlier, sometimes men just don't know. And so dealing with, okay, does he really know or does he not? Like, is he being manipulative? Is he being controlling? Is he being like, we need to be honest with ourselves about that. Yeah. And then that's when you can come up with solutions on what you need to do next, because now you know the type of man that you're dealing with. So in that comes, as far as taking care of yourself, maybe you need to, and not like in a sneaky way or anything, but, maybe set up a second bank account or another bank account so that you can have money for yourself, especially, as you were saying, this other husband who makes an effort and time to spend money on himself. Is there money left over for you? And again, be honest with yourself about this. That's where your solutions are going to come from, your honesty. So, and also I wrote some notes about this. Maybe you need to have seek emotional support from, like I said, a support group or professional counselor. Again, if you're honest with yourself about your situation. And then lastly, you need to have more casual and less intense conversations about your needs. Mm-hmm. So time, place, tone, body language is everything. Mm-hmm. So you may want to choose a time when everything's real chill and bring up to your husband the help or the support that you need. Because I don't know how these conversations have been going. I don't know why he don't support you.
Right.
So if you're coming at him wrong, I don't know if him hanging out and doing all this other stuff is the only control he has in his life because you're so controlling.
Right.
I don't know why he's not supporting.
Right.
I'm not sure. So choose a time where everything's chill, and use your I statements. Honey, I feel overwhelmed. Can you, would you mind helping me with the dishes twice a week? Or not would you mind? I need your help with the dishes twice a week.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Those are less intense conversations about your needs and your desires.
And ideally, you will get a better understanding of what he needs too in those conversations.
Exactly.
Sometimes you're just not aware of some things but just like what you're saying, there may be a reason why he's spending his evenings out of the house. If it's hell in the house when he's home, and maybe all he needs is, hey, when I get home, I need an hour
Yeah.
or whatever, but
Yeah.
ideally in a marriage is the communications that are happening are helping you guys both um get what you need. I
Right.
remember, but sometimes they just don't get it, and sometimes it's just, they just will never get it. There were some things that I communicated with my husband a year or so ago about some things I needed help with around the house. I can't remember the details, but um he wasn't, it wasn't consistent, it wasn't happening. And so I just had to figure out different ways to get whatever it was I was asking for. And so there was like one day that I had to leave the house completely. It was a weekday, and he had to execute lessons for the whole day. And he texted me later that day while I was gone, and he was, whatever it was that I asked for, he was 100% on board, because the light bulb went off. Is this what this woman deals with every day with these
Yeah.
kids? Is
Yeah.
this what she has to do every day with these kids? And he was like, oh man, what do you need in order for you to stay available to do this? Because this is extreme. This is important. This is intense. You do this every day. I'm doing it one day and I'm like ready to tap out.
Right.
So, but there was a period of time, well, thank goodness he had a heart to want to understand. I have a good husband that desires to comprehend,
Yeah.
but there's some things that he probably still today don't quite understand why I need certain things, and it's okay. He just trusts that I'm being honest with him, and that I need it, and he helps me get it. But it's very possible that they just will not get it without having any other motives besides they just don't understand. But we do have to be open to hearing back from them, because there may be, and there probably is, some reasons why their behavior, whether it's because we're allowing it or whether they do have some legitimate concerns about what's happening in the house that's causing them to seek refuge
Uh-huh.
outside of the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know. Anyway, yeah, that's.
And the last thing on that, I want you all to stop waiting on permission. Stop trying to get permission to take care of yourself. You're waiting on permission to do what's best for you because he don't understand or you can't find his support. Well, that again, with or without your husband's support, you need support outside of him.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got girlfriends, family, whatever, somebody
Yeah.
supporting you.
Yeah.
And don't look to other marriages like, well, their husband do this and their
Exactly.
husband do that. That will ruin your life.
Mm-hmm.
It will ruin your life.
And
So
don't
just
let
stay
that come out of your mouth to
yes,
your
because
spouse. Well,
that may
so
be
and
another
so,
reason why he don't support or
and please don't throw me in. Well, Deanna from Refresh Mom said that she has a Saturday. Don't bring me in it.
um just do, and I'm not saying, you have to be disrespectful or nice, nasty, or rude to him or anything like that, but I'm gonna need you to do you, boo boo. Whatever that means for you, do
Have
you, and you
permission.
don't need your husband's permission to take care of yourself. Now, you want to be considerate because you are in a relationship, so you want to hold yourself accountable to him, let him know where you're going, what you're doing, but you don't need his permission to be healthy. You don't need his permission to be whole. You don't need his permission to be happy. Stop waiting on that because he don't
Yeah.
need yours. He gonna do whatever he
Right.
want to do when he want to do it,
Right.
how he want to do it.
He
Cause
ought not need yours, ladies.
right,
Ought not need your permission.
right,
So I'm just, if you are making him get permission, he ought not need it.
right.
That might be why he's playing softball 5 days a week. Anyway, go ahead.
I just cannot. I can't even imagine. So, so I can't even imagine. So anyway, so you just have to do what's best for you. Eat, like I said, without him understanding, without his support, do what's best for you. And I've found that wives and mothers that focus on themselves, eventually their husbands will come along and help and support them because you're not nagging them. You're not, you know, trying to control them or anything like that. Like, he wants to help you.
Right.
You have to think the best of your husband too. Like, he wants to be your hero.
Yeah.
He wants to be your everything. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, just, girl, do you.
Yeah. And he ought to see the benefit, and your children ought to see the benefit
Yes.
of you choosing to put yourself as a priority. We're not doing this um and coming back being the same hellion that we were before we took a
Right.
break. We're not. We're the reason why we're doing this. First of all, our health depends on it, but we're hoping that out of it, we're able to be equipped to do what the demands of our family need from
Right.
us. And we want to
Right.
do that well, whether that's homeschooling, even when we're talking about business and being available for your business, there's a toll that doing this type of work has on me, because it's a consistent outpouring. I base my business off of content. I'm continually creating content. Yesterday, I spoke at my church for a Mother's Day. It wasn't a Mother's Day message, but I spoke. And then right after that, I taught a workshop. And when I got up this morning, I felt like a truck ran over me. I did not do anything physically, really. I sat and I talked and I poured. It takes a toll to pour out into other people. And as mothers and as wives, that's exactly what we're doing all the time, is pouring out. And whether or not we don't necessarily see something tangible, being like taking a glass and pouring something, we don't necessarily see that something is leaving us.
Right.
Something is leaving us. It's divine. I taught this in my workshop. It is a divine system of pouring out and refilling. It is how it's set up to work, and you cannot continue to pour without having opportunities to pour back in consistently. I'm not talking about every 2 months. No, I'm talking about daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. It has to happen. And it needs to happen regardless of the understanding of your children or your husband. Ideally, we are being very clear in communication is happening well so that everybody's on the same page. But in the circumstances where understanding is not 100%,
right,
you are still responsible for making sure this is happening for you. And we're going to stop there. Can we stop there? You
yes,
think
ma'am.
that's good? Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Oh, ma'am.
Okay. Ladies, everything that was referenced, which I don't even know what all was referenced here, is going to be in the show notes, but I will definitely have links to how you can find Faith. I will also relink the self-care assessment, which is already on the page, but just in case you need a quick reference, the self-care assessment is going to be there. All of the self-discovery questions that I've published in the group, I will attach those as well. And I think that's it. Oh, and well, I don't know. We'll see. Faith has a book. But at the time that I'm recording this, I am hoping to put a self-care package together for you guys. I hope I can release it when I release this video. So we will see. If not, it's coming soon. But I'm putting together a self-care package that's going to include Faith's book. Faith, can you go ahead and say the name of your book?
Sure. And I actually have it here. It's called Your Tool Guide for a Happy Marriage.
Yes.
Practical solutions on how to build a thriving marriage. It's a short book, only 7 chapters. I'm a very get to the point, quick person when it comes to writing. And so I talk a lot about effective anger management, productive communication without manipulation, navigating through trust violations, and sex.
Yeah, I love talking about sex.
I love talking about sex, girl.
All right. And that is it. If not the package, I will definitely link to how you can get that book from Faith.
Sure.
And women, I love you guys. This is, like I said, this is a joy for me. I tell you guys that often. You guys bring me life. And I'm so happy that God directed me to start this group. And Faith, thank you so much for giving us your time today. And I will bring you back. This is going to be some other topic that I'm sure is going to be relevant to have you on. But thank you. I love you.
Thank
Thank
you. I love you too, girl.
thank you. All right, ladies.